Welcome back from vacation. I wanted to spend today just going over what we were working on before you guys were off on your little vacation. So nothing new today, but I think this will be beneficial for everybody. So make sure you watch it all the way through and try the practice problems at the end. So the first thing I want to look at is slope-intercept form. So right here, this is a linear equation, and it's in what we call slope-intercept form because you can really quickly and easily pick out the slope, which is m, and the intercept, which is b. So if you're wondering again, why is this thing m when it stands for slope? So hopefully this will help you. So the slope is how your graph moves. I like to think of that because then the m finally makes sense. So think of m as the movement in the graph. That is your slope. You're going to have the same thought about b standing for y-intercept. So this is where it crosses the y-axis. And if you're thinking again, b, that makes no sense. Why does b stand for intercept? Think of it as where your graph begins. So when the x value is 0, that's where you're going to find the y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to think of the slope as how the graph moves, and the y-intercept is where it begins on that y-axis. So we're going to go through a couple equations. We're just going to identify those two things. That's all. We're not going to graph them. We're just looking at them and seeing if we can find it. So as long as your equation is in this form, a y equals a number times x plus b, all you're doing is taking those numbers out. So if I want to know what the slope of this equation is, y is by itself, we're looking for the number in front of the x. M is 2. If I want the y-intercept, or where this thing is going to begin or cross the y-axis, it's right here. It's the constant, or just the number on the end. This one is a positive 5 because of that plus 5. So again, here's b. That's where it begins. And your slope is the number in front of the x. Let's look at the next one. Here is my b value, including the sign. So b is -2. M is your number that's in front of the x value. So that's what we would write down. We're going to say m equals -3, b equals -2. This means that this line, you would put a dot on -2 on the y-axis, and then we would go down 3, right 1, because if you remember, this can be written as a fraction. Let's look at the next one. My b value is always the constant that hangs out on the end. If there's nothing there, it just means there's really this invisible plus 0. And your slope is the number in front of the x. So m is 7, b is 0. So this graph, it would be crossing at the origin. It would go up 7 over 1. Next one, b value is just that constant, the number on the end. Your slope is the number in front of the x. So m is 1/2, b is 6. So if I were graphing this, I would start at 6 on the y-axis, and I would go up 1 over 2. That's it. That's all you had to do. So now we're going to take it that one step further, and we're going to graph these two using their slope and intercept. So I'm going to start by doing the same thing we did up here. So looking at that first one, my y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is right here at -2. Okay, and my slope is the number in front of the x. So my slope is 1/3. All right, so let's just graph it. I covered up my graph so you wouldn't get overwhelmed when you first started the video, but there it is. Okay, so if I slope, sorry, I'm distracted by my obnoxious child. 1 second. Okay, successfully yelled at my child. All right, so we identified the b value as -2. That's where we begin on our graph. So here's -2. And then we're going to use our slope value to determine how this thing moves. So it goes up 1 over 3. So from here, up 1 over 3. That's it. So we're just going to draw that in, and that would be the line for my equation. There it is. So this is y equals 1/3 x minus 2. There's my intercept. There's my slope of 1/3. That's it. Let's graph the next one. All right, so if I'm going to identify my slope and my intercept, I'm going to start with identifying my intercept, where I begin on the graph. There's nothing here, which means it technically has a +0. So my b value is 0. So if I want to start, that's right here. There's b. Now let's figure out how this thing moves. So if I want to know how this thing moves, we're looking for the slope, which is right in front of the x. So my m is -3. Remember, this can be written as a fraction. So I'm going to go down 3 over 1. So 1, 2, 3 over 1. All right, we just connect it and we're done. That is my line. So my intercept is 0 and my slope is -3 over 1. That's it for our graph. All right, the last thing I want to go over is when we graphed from a table. So this, hopefully you'll eventually see, is a lot harder than just identifying the slope and the intercept. Graphing from a table always works, but it takes a lot of extra time. So we're looking at this equation. Let's say we were graphing it from slope and intercept. I would just start at -1 and go up 3 over 1. Up 3 over 1, plot, done. But when we're using a table, it just uses a little bit of extra time. So let's identify some values. Let's go -2, 0, and 1. Let's just pick 3 values for today. We're going to input them. So this is -6 minus 1 more. So my ordered pair is -2 and -7. Second one, 3 times 0 minus 1 would be -1. So this ordered pair is 0 and -1. Finally, 3 times 1 minus 1 is 2. So this ordered pair would be 1 and 2. We're just going to plot those. So the whole point of doing this, notice my little chick, it's going to become a chicken nugget. We input the x values, evaluate, get our output values, which are the y values, and make them ordered pairs. So I'm just going to plot them. So -2, -7, 0, -1, and 1, 2. So there's my line. So again, the table of values always works, but it's a little bit more tedious than if I had just initially looked right at my equation and said, well, this thing's going to start at -1, so plot -1, and from there, I'm going to go up 3 over 1. So identifying that slope and intercept is way faster. All right, that is everything we have learned in the previous 2 weeks before vacation. So you guys are going to do this. This is your turn. So get ready to pause the video. Okay, so pause on this. Give them a try. And then when you are done, then you can hit play and see your answers. All right, so go ahead and get started.